Despite strong local objections to becoming a part of a chain, Bowman renamed the Bellevue Hotel the Bellevue Biltmore. People were up in arms at the thought that it would become a chain. And then later they came up in arms when people wanted to change the name. The Olympics, the United States Olympic trials were held in the Bellevue Biltmore swimming pool that year. Then we go down to 1920, Prohibition began, and it remained in effect until 1933. During this era, and by the way, the book that I'm just now finishing and editing takes place in that era. It'll feature all of the things, the bootleggers and all that from that era. But during those years, the golf links were frequented by the most famous athletes in the country. In 1924, John Bowman added the south wing to the hotel, and this now brought the rooms up to 425 rooms, 380 of which were guest rooms. This was a $1 million expansion in 1924. Okay, it included an addition to the dormitory, and it enlarged the grand ballroom called the Starlight Ballroom. In 1929, the stock market plummeted. Party is over. Around the country, the hotel industry crashed and burned. Hundreds of hotels closed. The Bellevue Biltmore almost closed its doors during that time. However, the speakeasy and that side business of transporting liquor on the railroad helped the hotel survive. Even after Prohibition ended in 1933, the speakeasy remained a local hotspot. In 1939, Arnold Kirkeby purchased the Bellevue Biltmore, and by then, sunbathing had become a popular pastime. So he removed the roof off the swimming pool, but otherwise he didn't really change the hotel at all. The Bellevue Biltmore remained completely self-sufficient. It had its own electricity, its own post office, its own water, its own police force, its own fire department, and they serviced the entire town of Bel Air and still parts of Clearwater. The Bellevue Biltmore entered the war effort in 1941. That changed a lot of things. It was requisitioned by the U.S. Army Air Corps to provide additional housing for the servicemen training at MacDill Air Force Base and at Drew Airfield. Immediately, the hotel's ledgers, its registers, its antique furnishings, its chandeliers, its all this furniture, everything was removed to the hotel. They sold off some of the more common furniture, but the rest of everything was stored in warehouses. The post office and the police and the fire departments were moved off of the hotel property, and the town of Bel Air at that point took them over for themselves. The water, which had been still being pumped on their own and all that, well, the government didn't like that. They demanded we signed up with the power plant and the water from the city at that point in time. Now, submarine scares were really frequent during World War II. And so the nervous soldiers keeping eyes on the water of not only Clearwater Bay, but the Gulf waters beyond that, slathered the windows in the hotel. Now, this is 1,700 windows that were slathered on the inside and the outside with black paint to keep any light from possibly leaking out of the place. And they painted the interior walls a drab army green. I'm told a lot of that was busy work. During the next 18 months, the hotel's famous golf courses were used primarily for training exercises, a lot of marching. It was also sometimes used as a pup tent city when there was an overflow of soldiers. The Army also added those 3 phone booths that I talked about earlier, and they added a sprinkler system, which is still in use today. I understand it was finished just as they moved out, because that's Army precision. Okay, after the Army left the Bellevue Biltmore in 1944, it was discovered that the warehouses where all the artifacts were stored were empty. Some of the items had been taken to other Kirkeby hotels, but the hotel's valuable and most of the artifacts and everything had been stolen. It was a great loss for the hotel. The Kirkebys decided to sell the Bellevue Biltmore to Ed Wright in an as-is condition because of this. And he bought it for a mere $275,000. Yeah, I'd be all over that. Okay, Ed Wright was a multi-millionaire. He had made his fortune off of doing this. Whenever everybody had no money, he could buy all this property. And he bought that land as an investment. He did not intend to reopen the Bellevue Biltmore, and it sat quiet for 2 years. In 1946, Wright sold a portion of the Bellevue Biltmore property to a group of investors from Detroit, headed by Bernard and Mary Powell. And they had 2 silent partners as well. In an amazing feat of rapid restoration, the Bellevue Biltmore and its golf courses were restored to their former grandeur, including new plumbing, new wiring, fresh paint, everything. And they reopened in time for the 1947 winter season. That was pretty incredible that they were able to do that. Now in 1963, I'm jumping a couple decades here, the Powell Group built the Cabana and Beach Club on Indian Rocks Beach so that their guests could have the beautiful sugar sand beach just across the Intercoastal Waterway. And they had a small yacht that ferried the hotel guests and locals back and forth from the beach. Then Bernie Powell was thinking it takes 1,000 gallons of paint and a year-round crew to maintain the white exterior of the Bellevue Biltmore. In 1975, he decided aluminum siding was the way to go. So it took a crew of 15 men working 10-hour days, 6 days a week for 4 months to complete that project. And by the time they were done, they had installed 1,800 huge squares of aluminum siding and 5.8 miles of window trim. In 1979, the Bellevue Biltmore was proudly added to the National Register of Historic Places. At the end of 1985, Powell and his group were ready to retire. They signed a 3-year lease option agreement with a group led by a developer, Charles Ruttenberg. For the first time in the history, the Bellevue Biltmore and its golf courses would be open year-round. This is 1985, the first time it's going to open year-round. The new partnership poured $10 million into the hotel. They renovated the guest rooms. They had to add air conditioning, of course, because it was going to be open year-round. They constructed a new state-of-the-art spa. Unfortunately, the group's financial management skills were lacking. At the end of that 3-year period, the Powell Group was forced to resume control of the property. Also during this time, Ed Wright died unexpectedly in New York. Without informing the Powell Group, his executor of his estate listed all of his real estate holdings for sale in the Wall Street Journal, including the property surrounding the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel. Within 24 hours of that posting, U.S. Steel had a contract on the property and bought it for $5,750,000. So you see, Wright did okay with his investment. Right. In 1986, U.S. Steel presented plans to the town of Bel Air. They decided they were going to build condo towers all the way down the length of the bluff, and the town folk again took out the pitchforks. They went and they sued because they said there's no way you're going to ruin our beautiful view of the water and take away our sea breezes. So U.S. Steel retaliated, and they said, okay, fine. Then we will just take these 2 golf courses, and we won't, interfere with your height restrictions. We'll just simply, bulldoze the 2 golf courses and build 692 individual home sites there. And the town was just like, no. So eventually they reached a compromise, and U.S. Steel was allowed to build some, but not all, of the condominium towers that they wanted to along the bluff. And in return, it was decided that the Bellevue Biltmore golf courses would become green spaces in perpetuity. That means they could never be anything but green spaces. Now, U.S. Steel was not interested in owning or operating green golf courses. They'd take no steel at all. So real estate developer Bobby Bird organized local citizens, and they purchased the golf courses to form a private enterprise called the Bellevue Biltmore Country Club. It is now doing business as the Bel Air Country Club. Okay, this new golf club had to honor the deal that Powell made with Wright, and that deal allowed the people who had come to be guests at the hotel to play golf on those courses, even if it was a private course. Didn't matter. They still got to play. Later that year, in 1987, the Powell Group sold the hotel and beach property to the Erdang Corporation for $22 million. The Japanese Mito Corporation then bought it from Erdang for $25 million in less than a year. Almost immediately, though, unfortunately, bad feelings developed between these new owners, the Mito Corporation, and the country club and the surrounding community. Without understanding the historic significance of the hotel's name, they changed it from the Bellevue Biltmore to the Bellevue Mito Resort. They were hoping to give them a little bit of empathy here, they were hoping to attract Japanese tourists who wanted to golf. That was their whole mission. And so their renovation included a huge, ultra-modern brass and glass entrance lobby, which was, all incorporated with the feng shui, and it clashed with a historic hotel like you wouldn't believe, right? The locals dubbed it the pagoda, and it's been the pagoda ever since. Okay, but then when the hotel decided they, again, were trying to attract Japanese tourists, so they decided they would fly both the American and the Japanese flags. Yeah. The majority of those country club members had fought in World War II, and they thought this was an unforgivable insult to fly the Japanese flag. So they decided all their membership started boycotting the hotel, and they hired an attorney to argue in court. And the court came up and said the agreement that allowed the hotel guests to play on the golf courses was between Wright and Powell. It didn't necessarily transcend ownership. So the country club severed its ties with the hotel, and for the first time since it opened in 1897, the Bellevue Biltmore could not provide golf to its guests. The Bellevue Mito Corporation quickly purchased the public Pelican Golf Course on Indian Rocks Road, which is about a mile from the hotel, and they renamed it the Bellevue Mito Golf Club. They built a clubhouse on the property, incorporating the same architectural features and color schemes of the hotel. In 1997, though, they were still unable to gain acceptance from the community, and the Bellevue Mito Corporation finally decided to just abandon the hotel. When they did that, the ownership reverted back to Erdang Associates, and they quickly flipped now what was 3 Bellevue Biltmore properties to the Jetta family for $15,750,000. Keeping in mind that they have made money each time that whatever has been paid on this hotel and whatever was put down on the hotel. The Jettas immediately changed the name back to the Bellevue Biltmore Resort, and we all received a big hot sigh of relief. To complete the very unfinished renovations by the Mito Corporation, they financed the mortgage through Erdang and Associates. They were operating on what we call a shoestring budget. They depended on the revenue of the hotel to not only pay their bills, but also to finance the renovations. And they were doing it. They were doing all right. And then came 9/11, the Twin Towers tragedy in 2001, and tourism dropped like a rock. At that point, the family fell into bankruptcy, and Erdang and Associates took the property back via what they called a friendly foreclosure. Erdang began to entertain a purchasing proposal from the DeBartolo Development Group, who planned to demolish the Bellevue Biltmore Resort and the Bellevue Biltmore Golf Course, replacing both with a planned community. These were not met with happy faces. They were forced to abandon that plan when the town of Bel Air instituted a historic preservation ordinance designed to protect the hotel from demolition by design or by neglect. In 2007, a group called Legg Mason Real Estate Investors purchased the Bellevue Biltmore with plans to fully restore the property. In May of 2009, they closed for that renovation, and they put the fence up, and everybody was celebrating. They sold all of the hotel's contents except for the historic artifacts. I was the last person to check out of the hotel. Everything was prepped for renovation. Prepping for renovation, by the way, means you remove all the carpets, you tear down any loose wallpaper that you can, and you start knocking holes in various points in the ceilings and walls to check the condition of the substructure and the primary structure. Once this was done, then the hotel renovation was first delayed by 2 lawsuits. And unfortunately, even though they won those lawsuits, the timing proved tragic. Just after Legg Mason had gutted the hotel, making it impossible to reopen it without something being done, the real estate market collapsed and the group lost all of its investors. In 2010, in lieu of foreclosing on Legg Mason, the Erding Group sold the mortgage to the Kawa Company. The balance of the mortgage at this point in time was $8 million, and that's what the Kawa got these 3 properties for, $8 million. They immediately divided the hotel property into 3 separate parcels: the golf course, the beach property, and the hotel. In 2012, an investment group was negotiating with the Kawa to purchase and renovate all 3 sections of the hotel property. At a town meeting where they were discussing whether or not to make commercial properties eligible for a potential tax relief following a renovation, one of the commissioners announced that, by the way, the construction moratorium on the golf course property that was owned by the hotel had expired in 2006. Oops. Now, this was a bombshell in the middle of this meeting, and immediately everybody was terrified because, first of all, they wanted that golf course to remain as a green space, but also directly underneath it is the town's primary aquifer. If somebody built on top of that, it could taint the water of the entire town. Sadly, Kawa learned that with this information, they realized they had negotiating leverage with the town of Bel Air. They threatened to foreclose on themselves and sell the property to the highest bidder unless the town would forgive the huge fines they owed and release the golf course and beach properties from the liens that were assessed on them for violating the town's ordinance with regard to demolition by neglect of a historic property. This is because they were not repairing the roof. The rain was coming in and they were getting fined $250 a day. If Kawa foreclosed, the town wouldn't be able to collect its fines, and even worse, the golf course could be sold to someone who might want to develop the land. Town officials decided they would buy the golf course, waive the lion's share of the hefty fines that had accrued, and release the liens from the golf course and the beach properties. The moment those liens were lifted, Kawa sold the Cabana Club property to a developer. So, of the 3 properties that used to make up the Bellevue Biltmore Resort, the only parcel whose fate is still in question is the property that has the hotel. It's 20 acres and it has the hotel on it. Now, the roof damage looks bad, but that doesn't mean that the water that's coming in the hotel is destroying the hotel, as many would have you believe. It's simply not true. The hotel substructure is as solid as stone. The water leaks have done a lot of damage to some of the plaster walls in several of the rooms of the upper 2 floors of the hotel, but this damage is irrelevant because the majority of the guest rooms need to be removed to reconfigure the rooms. Keep in mind, when the hotel opened, you shared a bathroom with your neighbor. And when that was no longer acceptable to tourists, they made one room into a parlor and the other room into your bedroom. They need to reconfigure so each room has its own bathroom. They also need to rewire. They need to add fiber optics, everything that today's tourists demand. So the idea that you have to tear down the plaster walls is insignificant. Now, the Bellevue Biltmore, no one argues that the Bellevue Biltmore is the literal cornerstone of Bel Air, for all the reasons that I've told you. Bel Air is built around the hotel because of the hotel. No one argues that it's not sturdy enough to last another 100 years. Nobody argues that point. The argument is, and no one argues, by the way, that it would be the most profitable use of the property if the hotel was restored. The town and everybody would benefit most if it was made back into a hotel. But the developer who wants to demolish the hotel and replace it with an inn, condos, and townhomes right now is because he can make his largest profit by tearing down the hotel. And it comes down to the dollars and cents of it. Kawa is still the owner, even though it is under contract to a developer named Chisholm. Kawa is going through the process of trying to remove the Bellevue Biltmore from the protection of the Historic Preservation Ordinance on the grounds that it would cost too much to renovate the hotel. A group of preservationists and residents have filed a lawsuit in federal court hoping to place an injunction on the sale of the property to anyone who wishes to demolish it. Unfortunately, that case will not be heard until April 15th, and by then, unless the town slows down the process of demolition real soon, it's going to be too late. The Historic Preservation Board meets on September 30th at 5 o'clock in Bel Air's Town Hall. If you need directions, see me after this meeting. the fate of the hotel rests in their hands, because CAWA is going to be asking the board to issue what is called a certificate of appropriateness, which would, if they can prove it's appropriate, it would allow them to remove the hotel from the protection of the historic preservation ordinance. If this happens, the owners can then file for a demolition permit, and the hotel's days will truly be numbered. If you can attend that meeting and stop them from issuing that, that would be wonderful. Many people, including me, still hope the Bellevue Biltmore will be saved, but no matter what happens, I am determined to capture the hotel's fascinating history in my novels so that no one will ever forget the important role the Bellevue Biltmore played in the development and tourism of this area for the last 117 years. Whether or not the Bellevue Biltmore is saved, I feel my journey with the hotel has come full circle. I set out to find out why people were so intent to save the hotel, and I did that, and I became one of them. And now by writing the Spirits of the Bellevue Biltmore series, I find I've become part of its history. With that, I'm going to close my presentation. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the Bellevue Biltmore and my novels. I'll be glad to sign novels and take questions if that's okay. How am I doing on time? All right? Okay. All right. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Could you start a, paper that people here could sign?
A petition?
Yeah, and take it to the meeting, because I'm sure the meetings.
I can ask somebody to do that for me. I am the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board, so I get in this real squeaky spot where I can tell you what my opinion is, as long as you're not on the Planning and Zoning Board, but I can't do anything else. My hands get very tied on issues like this. I can absolutely put you in touch with people who do that, and I would love to have something like that at the September 30th meeting of the Historic Preservation Board. So yes, if we could do that, that'd be great.
And as part of that question, are there petitions that are circulating now?
I am not aware of any petitions. We're encouraging people to show up at the meeting, because basically this is like a lot of things, and particularly in government, the people who show up are heard, and the people who don't show up are out-shouted by the people who are at the meetings. And that is just what we've been going through. Unfortunately, the developers have a lot of money, and the deep pockets have been putting out a lot of false information, and frankly, they've been scaring a lot of the elderly people who live around them.
What was the date of the meeting, did you say?
It's going to be September 30th.
That's the Historic Preservation Board?
Historic Preservation Board meets on September 30th at 5